I am Dr. Don Bartlette. I'm an enrolled elder of Turtle Mountain Indian Reclamation in North Dakota. I now live in Ohio. I'm a full-time public speaker talking about diversity and racism and Native American culture all over the world now. Been doing that for 45 years. I grew up in a small white community here in North Dakota, not far from Turtle Mountain. My mother lived on the Turtle Mountain Reservation, but at the age of 13 she ran away from child abuse, sexual abuse, poverty, hunger, alcoholism, bullying, and she ran away looking for a new life. And as she ran to the small town near the Canadian border, that's where she met a French-Canadian Native American man who was very tall, very strong, but grew up in a situation of family violence, poverty, hunger, malnutrition, alcoholism, and who knows? I never knew my father well, nor his background. I knew my mother more as she shared with me for many years what she went through and why she ran away from the reservation. But as they met with their own hands, they built a one-room log cabin up in the hills near that small white community, and they were not welcome in the community, being Native. And in that small one-room log cabin where they had no electricity, no running water, a dirt floor, they were very poor, very lonely, very hungry. They wouldn't hire my father because he was Native American. So we were on welfare for a long time, but again, the white welfare worker was not a woman who valued Native people. Because my father drank alcohol, she was very determined not to help us the way she should have. And when I came into their life, I had a severe facial disability called severe cleft palate. And because we were poor, nobody really cared about them having a severely handicapped baby. In fact, the doctor, the white doctor, told my mother to let me die because I would never learn, I never taught. And because we were Indian and we had no money, why keep a baby? But my mother valued life, as many Native women do. She valued life. And she hung on to me until the white people found out from the doctor. He called me a freak Indian baby. I have it on the medical report in a book I'm writing called Macaroni at Midnight. And in that book I talk about my birth, my parents, and the fact that the white people took me away, sent me away from my mother. If my father had already run away, he couldn't handle having a handicapped son. He couldn't love me the way he should have. And so they sent me to a hospital. And there, according to the medical records, I was in the hospital for several weeks before anybody did anything. And nobody did anything until a white university male student who was an intern in medical school happened to be there. And when he asked about the Indian baby not receiving any intervention, only then they repaired my nose somewhat, repaired the upper lip. They did nothing with the hole in the top of my mouth and sent me back to live with my mother. And I share in my book and in a movie we're working on called Macaroni at Midnight that for 9 years, on her own, with our help from the welfare lady, with our help from that white community, with our help from her church, my mother helped me survive in that one-room shack. Going down into the village late at night to steal food from the farmers, going down to the river and bringing back water and dropping the water down that hole to help me survive. I should have had milk, I should have had orange juice, I should have had healthy nutrition. We had none of that. And so my mother had to fend for us. My dad wasn't there. And then she as a young child, began helping me learn about the world around me, nature, the leaves falling from the trees, the running water, putting my hand in the river, and trying to help me understand the meaning of water. And she taught me so much. And I remember watching her just looking at me all the time, wondering why I couldn't talk. She really valued me, though. I remember her holding me and loving me and always telling me, you know, don't worry, one day you'll talk. And one day you'll go to school. I didn't know what that meant, because for 9 years I wasn't allowed in school. People have to remember that. For 9 years, because of my disability and because of my Native heritage, I was not allowed in the Catholic school that my mother was a member of. I wasn't allowed in the public school. And so at the age of 9, my mother found me wandering around that small community one day on my own, and that bothered her. She was very overprotective. Found me in the dump ground playing with the rats and eating the food, swallowing the food from the dump ground, putting on the clothes that the white people had thrown away. And out of her concern for me and out of her love and out of her hope for a future, she took me to the parochial school, and they would not allow me in. I mean, this was her church, her faith. They wouldn't help her child because of what I represented. And so she took a risk. And I used to really be angry at my mother early in life for taking that risk. Now I promote it all over the world. She took the risk of believing in me to the point where she brought me to the public school of all places, where my people just weren't welcomed or valued then. This is 1948 now. And as I became a part of that elementary school, I suffered racism, bullying, school violence, teasing, being called smelly Indian. They used to call me Donald Duck because my first name is Donald. And I never knew who Donald Duck was, but they would imitate Donald Duck. Whack, whack, you can't talk. Say whack, whack, flat nose, flat nose. And that used to hurt me a lot. But I could never tell my mother, and I had no speech. My mother sent me back every day. And I tried to tell her, you know, but she didn't know what was happening. And so I went back, and my mother wanted me, and she kept telling me, you have to be in school. I know you can learn, but she was the only one who believed that. My teachers, quite frankly, and I don't mean to be offensive, I just want to be honest, they were horrible. They rejected me, classified me as mentally retarded, locked me in a janitor's closet. I was 9 years old. They locked me in a janitor's closet. I don't understand that even today as a certified teacher. How do you do that to a child? They had the training of how to be a teacher. And yet, you're a Native American child with a disability, that did not value, that was not of any value to them. And I remember being in that closet, locked away from the other children, and there was a crack in the door, and I could see enough watching the children go up to the blackboard and doing math and all the other academic tasks, and the teacher patting them on the shoulder and handing them apples and rewards. And here I am in a janitor closet wanting the same thing and wanting to learn and wishing I could, but she never allowed that to happen. And I want to emphasize again, she went to church regularly. She was a certified teacher. They still honor her. And in all fairness, now that I'm an adult, and now that I've learned how to forgive and survive through the help of God, she was an excellent teacher as I look back. The children loved her. And my classmates, when we had our 50th year high school reunion, they remember her. They remember her well, and they had every right to remember her. They loved her. She loved them. They were white. I cannot share that about her. I have no respect for her. I learned nothing from her other than hate and racism. And children learned that. Children learned that, locked away, segregated. Never went to the second grade. That teacher said, I won't have him. Without talking to my mother, no parental involvement at all. They put me in the third grade. My mother didn't even know that. And it was my third grade teacher. I remember her name. I remember what she looked like. She told the children, just don't look at him. Don't play with him. He's Indian. We don't want him in our school. And they learned from her. So they took me up in the hills and tied my hand to a tree and battered me physically until the blood ran down on my clothing. And they ran away laughing, never told anybody. An old man from Canada, a Hutterite man, they used to live 3 miles away in a Hutterite colony. Why he was walking through the hills that night, I'll never know. I believe it was an act of God. And he found me, untied the rope. I ran home. And that was the night that I met my father on a personal level. And my father was tall, and he was strong and well-built, and the women loved him, even the white women, which wasn't a problem for my mother, but they loved him for the wrong reason. And my father had many affairs among the non-native and the native women. But when he saw me, and I could not talk, and I couldn't tell my mother how I got the blood all over me, he became angry, and he was an alcoholic by then, full-term alcoholic by then. And alcoholism affects native and non-native people in the same way. I learned that as a child because when he took the alcohol, he treated me like the white children, hitting me, hurting me, rejecting me. And when my mother tried to prevent the violence, she became a victim, what we now call family violence. And we have that on every reservation in American Canada yet today. I do a lot of speaking and training on every reservation in American Canada. It's no different. It's no different today. Children are being beaten, mistreated, segregated, bullied, committing suicide, becoming alcoholic, becoming drug addicts. And so he hurt me that night. My mother tried to prevent the violence, and in her becoming a victim, I saw her thrown out a window. Now for a young native child to see his mother thrown out a window, that affects his learning ability, his survival instincts, the anger within, the emotional damage, and I began hating at that point my father, which should not be a value about our people, but when native fathers hurt their children, children react emotionally to the damage. And I hated my father for the rest of my life, and his life, until right before he died, but that's another story. And so I ran away from that shack up in the hills. I ran into that white community, and I have all the police records in my book. Became a juvenile delinquent, became homeless, became angry, tried to commit suicide in the river. We have a river running through that small town still today. Sleeping in white people's garages in their automobiles, sleeping in the roller skating rink down in the park, surviving on chocolate candy bars night after night, trying to be warm, wanting to be safe from my father. And as I became a homeless adolescent juvenile delinquent, I made some pretty bad choices. And one of them was going back into school. Out of my desire to learn, I knew we had a library. I was never allowed in the library because I couldn't read and being Indian. So I broke into the library, which I know I shouldn't have done, but I wanted to read, and I loved looking at pictures and wondering what they meant. And so I broke into the library, took a book, went back to my classroom, because I wanted to be in the classroom. And I want teachers to know that. We might react like we don't want to learn, but we're only reacting to the damage and the loneliness and the hurt and the pain and the hunger. Children living in that environment don't learn the same way as other children might. But I wanted to learn, and I want to make that clear. I always wanted to learn. I was fascinated when I went to the dump ground and I found comic books. And just wondering, what are the pictures reflecting? What are they doing? Why are they running? Why are they smiling? You know? And it just fascinated me. And my mother had a third-grade education from Turtle Mountain Reservation, and she knew that about me. She knew that I was inquisitive about everything. I was always pointing at leaves, you know, falling in the ground. I mean, I wonder, why do they fall downward, not up? Why does the water run downhill and not uphill? And I was always very curious. And so I broke into the library, took a library book, went back to my classroom and fell asleep on the floor. Never thinking that one poor decision, and I share this with Native youth all over America and Canada, that our decisions will determine the outcome of what we go through. When I awakened the next morning, 2 white policemen were standing over me, and they had broken into the school, took a book out of the library, and they took me by my hair. And I'm very open about this now. I couldn't talk about it for 30-some years. Locked me in the trunk of their automobile. Now that is racism, and you can't argue. That is racism. Locking a child in a trunk today. If a parent would do that, they go to prison, and they do. They took me to the local jail, and when we went back to that small town years ago to begin filming the movie, when the movie producer took me back to the jail, he said, "Why are you shaking?" And I didn't even know, but I was just shaking, and I had to remember everything I went through that night. And now we call it sexual abuse, physical abuse, racism. The police had a billy club, and they used the billy club to damage my body. And then after removing my clothing, what I never even knew about, quite frankly, called sexual abuse. It was just, I used to have nightmares for years, remembering the screams inside of me that I couldn't cry out and I had no voice. And the more they penetrated my body, the more I just wanted to kill. And that's where the whole sensation of wanting to kill became even deeper. My mother had told me, we should never kill. But it didn't mean anything to me until my father began hurting me and until the police began raping me. Hate is an awful emotion in the life of a 12-year-old child. We have the highest rate of suicide in America. It's no wonder that my people have the highest rate. That's why. And I thought even more about suicide. But when my father took me home and hurt me again, I went to the wall and took the rifle, and I wanted to kill my father, like the young Native boy 12 years ago on the Red Lake Reservation in Minnesota. He murdered, I think, 11 people, 9 or 11 people, including relatives, teachers, and other adults who had mistreated him. He murdered them. I understand that motivation. I wanted to do the same thing, to my own dad. But that's where my mother came back into my life and said, we must never, ever kill. And that's also the beginning of my mother telling me about hope. And I share with young people that as a 12-year-old child, I had no hope for a future. I had none. I couldn't imagine my life ever changing. How would it? Why would it? And my mother told me one day, I'll never forget that, one day. And I loved my mother, I valued my mother, but to be quite frank, I knew things wouldn't change as long as my father were alive. I wanted him dead. And it was at that moment in my adolescence, I was 12 years old, that unknown to me, one of my white classmates in the elementary school had gone home for a long time, telling her parents about the Indian boy. And one day her mother said, well, Donna, why don't you show him some kindness? We go at church every Sunday. And Donna told her mother, Mother, he's Indian. Even the teachers tell us not to look at him or play. They do? And that really angered the white woman. And even though it took a long time for her to hear what was happening to me, more important than that was the fact that at one moment in her adult life, she decided to take a risk. And Macaroni at Midnight became the journey, the story, the memories of a white woman, wealthy, well-known, prominent, actually. They owned the grocery store, they owned property, they lived in a lovely home. They had one daughter. She went to Europe, she owned animals, she had everything. And she's the one who went home laughing about the Indian boy. And one day the mother told the movie producer, I just couldn't sleep at night. Every time I read the Bible, I thought, why am I not doing something? Because the Bible told her to love all people, show the love of God to all people. And one day she took the risk and she came looking for me. But she was white. She was white. And when I saw her coming at me, I assumed that she might hurt me. Why wouldn't she? You know, she was white. And that's where the emotions that Native children develop come out of. And when I saw she was white, she told the movie producer, I'd never seen such a frightened child. I literally moved away from her. And I didn't want her turning my ear like the nun in the program school. I didn't want her locking me in a janitor closet. I was just fearful and walked away from her. And it took me years to write about that moment. But I call it the moment when change occurred. She came into my life and touched my hand and called me by my name. Called me by my name. She said, Don, I'm not going to hurt you. I want to help you. And I remember thinking, why? I mean, who is this? And then when I tell Native children now all over the world, literally, as a child, I had to make a choice. And we have to make choices. They can be negative or positive, but they do affect what happened to us. And so I made the choice to trust her for a moment. And as I looked into her face, I will never forget her. Her eyes were just filled with gentleness. Her smile was compassionate. She just said, I want to help you. Don't be afraid of me. But I wasn't afraid of her. I was afraid of her. And she put her hand on mine again, and she said, would you like to help me? First non-Native person ever believing that I might be able to help or be helped even. And I shook my head like, I didn't know what she was talking about. She said, will you help me wash my car? Well, how does a child growing up in a third world environment understand what washing a car is when we never had one? We never had one. And how do you wash a car? I mean, that is so foreign to a Native child's mind. And so then she took my hand, and she had a round faucet on the outside of her house. And I share this now all over the world, and it brought humor into my childhood. She showed me how to turn on the faucet. And when we turned on the faucet, running water came out of her house. I mean, I was just blown away. I mean, running water coming out of a building. And I tell people now, she jumped away from me. I mean, it frightened her to see my reaction. But it frightened her to the point where she wanted to know why. And that's what every teacher should be thinking. Why is he afraid? Why did that frighten him? I mean, she had no idea we didn't have running water. At that point, she knew nothing about our one-room log cabin. She'd never been there. Had no idea we had a dirt floor. No idea that we had one bed, one stove, one table, and 2 chairs. She knew nothing about our poverty. And when I jumped away, she said, "Oh, now, don't be afraid. I know you can learn how to do this." What none of my teachers ever said to me, "I know you can learn." I thought, my mother told me that. My mother told me that. One day, you'll learn. And so she took my hand again, showed me how to turn on the water, showed me how to wash her automobile 4 times in one afternoon. And she began looking at me saying, "Oh, Donald Bartlette, you are so much fun to be around." And I thought, wow, why is she different than Miss So-and-so in the 1st grade? And then I share, to make a long story short, it was the white woman who revolutionized the world around me, teaching me how to take a shower, how to brush my teeth, how to comb my hair, how to earn quarters, how to mow her grass, how to buy my own clothing, how to pay for a haircut, how to read, and how to write. When I talk to teachers, I make that point very evident. She, not being certified, taught me how to read, taught me how to write. Homeschooling is what we call it today. Charter schooling, perhaps. It works. It works. And I began learning. I began responding to her. I began smiling. I began smelling cleaner and wondering, wow, this is a whole different life. And she wants me to come back. I wish she were alive, because she told the movie producer she was a woman of comfort before she met me. But I rang her doorbell at 4 in the morning, and her hair in rollers. "Why, Donald, well, come on in. You must be hungry." And then she'd feed me day after day, motivate me, loving me. And through her help and intervention, I became a learner, I became a student. She even taught me how to speak. And Macaroni at Midnight talks about one night around the midnight hour when I went home after years of being helped by the white woman, and I made a sound after eating a bowl of macaroni at midnight. That's where I got the title for my book. And through that intervention, then she prepared me for receiving speech therapy and medical intervention, 17 surgeries, dental, facial, speech handicap, speech intervention for 6 summers at a camp here in North Dakota. And it was at that camp where my whole self-image began to evolve even more positively. I mean, when you learn how to talk, when you learn how to learn, when you learn how to dress, when you learn how to shower. And then they hired me at that summer camp to wash toilets as a biffy boy. But I earned money, and it made me independent. And it was at that summer camp I learned how to talk after 6 years of intervention. And they hired me to be a program director, and that began my career in social work for 22 years. in education for 22 years, counseling. My whole professional career began there. And through that intervention and therapy, I went back to that small community. She found a house in the village for my family. We became integrated, as they now say. My father found employment through her help. And when she showed the white people that she valued Native people, that began changing the community. And they knew she was important, prominent, and had money. And money talks. Money means power, and I learned that from her. She used all of that positively to make change in that community. And there was change. I have to be honest. I have to be fair. That community changed then for me. And I became valedictorian as a result. Again, the racism, she couldn't overcome all of it. There had to be 5 valedictorians, 4 white students, and then me, because I was the first Native to be valedictorian. And the school board wouldn't allow it. So we had the daughter of the newspaper publisher, the mayor's daughter, the school board chairman's daughter. And when they got to the 4th recipient of being the valedictorian, she said, "How would that be? We all copy his work." And they were right. They had all copied my work. They had seen it, literally. And I had helped them. Wrong choice. Shouldn't have done that. I wanted to be accepted. And when you want to be accepted, you do things that may not be positive or fair. I became valedictorian, and again, through her intervention, went on to 3 universities. And I share now what I couldn't talk about for a long time, and I wasn't proud of being Indian. The only thing she never taught me, as an educator should or would, was my Indian heritage. And if I had any negative evaluation of her, that would only be it. She just didn't do that for me. I never learned to value my heritage the way I could have in the classroom or even in her home. Although I learned from her that she valued Native people, we never talked about it, you know. And so when I went to Minot State Teacher College my freshman year, she brought me there and helped me go to college a lot. I had a teacher there, Miss Hoffine, Lila Hoffine, white professor of English. And I always did well in English. And I excelled in her class. And one day she kept me after class and said, Mr. Bartlette, she called me Mr. Bartlette. We were in college. And that just blew me away. I mean, hello. For a Native American to be showing respect, Mr. Bartlette. And I looked and I thought, wow, you kind of remind me of the woman back home. And she said, "Are you Indian?" I said, "No." She said, "Mr. Bartlette, I think you are. And I want you to do a special project for me." And she gave me a book called Crazy Horse. I thought she was crazy, quite frankly. But I took the book back to my room and I thought, there must be a reason for her caring about me and realizing what the white woman in my hometown had done for me. Why not, you know, make a choice? We make choices, Native people. So I made a choice to let her come into my life. And after I read that book about Crazy Horse, I thought, wow, what he went through. And what he became for our people. What a leader. And it just threw me away. I mean, blew my mind. And I wrote a book report, and she gave me an A. She said, "You are a writer." And I looked and said, "Donald Bartlette, you are a writer. You know how to write. I don't have many students like you that know how to write." And that really propelled me and really built me up and made me feel like maybe I do have what the white woman back home. And so Miss Hoffine encouraged me to be proud of my Native heritage. It didn't happen right away, I have to be honest. I never forgot Crazy Horse. And that kept motivating me year after year after year, but I couldn't give in. I didn't want to be rejected by white people. And so I went to the University of North Dakota, and Minot State Teacher College told me that I would never become a teacher because of my speech impediment. And then I became an educator for 22 years. And being Indian, they wouldn't hire me to be a teacher then. So out of my frustration, I wrote a letter to the white woman back home, and she said, "Oh, go to the university. Go to the university. You might want to be a social worker. You do so well at summer camp." I went to UND, went into social work, and that just propelled me as a positive student on campus. Never admitted I was Indian. I want to make that clear. I could not tell anybody at UND. And they didn't have the program then that they have now. And I may have been one of the only few, if any, Native students on campus. I know I felt very alone because of the color of my skin. And we didn't have black students then, like we have now. So I felt very much alone. And my speech impediment really worked against my self-concept at the university. But I did so well in social work, I became a leader among the students, and then I became a big man on campus. I won academic honors, outstanding social work senior, president of the social work club, and I want young people to know, you have that ability, but again, you have to make choices. And I had to make, do I want to be a leader? What if they find out that I'm Indian? And I always feared that, all the way through the, what if they find out that I'm Indian? They knew. A lot of people knew. They just never confronted me or never shared that with me. So I did very well at the university. Went on to get my master's degree at Fargo. Academically, won all the honors, became president of the first counseling club on campus, got my PhD in California, and I used Macaroni at Midnight for my thesis, by the way. And they are still using my thesis in California to teach teachers how to help minority children in the classroom. I find that amazing. Anyhow, and as I began my professional career, I decided to work with children of diversity. I mean, no wonder why. And it was then that I met my wife, who happened to be a white woman from a General Motors family, very wealthy, millionaire family in Detroit, Michigan. Her father was a head of General Motors, very powerful, in Newsweek all the time. Ronald Reagan appointed him, no, Nixon appointed him to a federal advisory. I mean, they were prominent, wealthy people. But my wife was at the University of Michigan going into special education, and that was my forte. And she heard about my reputation. I'm working with minority children, disabled children. She came into my office one day and said, "Mr. Bartlette, I'm trying to earn my degree in special education, but I need an advisor, I need a mentor. Will you be my supervisor?" And I said, "Well, who are you?" And when I learned about her family, her background, the money, who they were, I said, "Absolutely." And it was that moment I knew I wanted to marry her for the wrong reasons. My wife would tell you that. I did not marry her on a love whatsoever. I didn't know how to love. And then I wanted the money, I wanted the whiteness, I wanted the culture that she represented, I wanted her father's name behind mine, I wanted General Motors, I wanted all of that. And she would tell you, even more frankly than me, she respected me professionally. And in her rebellion against some rather racist, narrow-minded, Christian, biblical principles that her family believed in through a Baptist orientation, she rebelled. And in her rebellion, she decided to marry me. And so we married out of rebellion. Mine was on a different level than hers, but there was still rebellion. And I won the battle. I won the battle. But through her rebellion, She never forgot her God and her faith. She was never prejudiced like her family. She was not narrow-minded like her family. She was not Baptist per se like her family. She had a love of all people. And when she began learning from me how to be a teacher, I saw it in her. She fell in love with minority children, black children that she had never been around. She began changing their lives through my mentoring. And we began working together. In fact, we got married and had a black minority mentally retarded child in our home as a foster child. Unheard of. You don't do that. And her family was just, they were violently opposed. And they told her, you're not welcome back in our home as long as you have a black child in your family. And that just furthered my rebellion and really her rebellion. Although she loved her family, she loved them with a love that I never had until right before they died. And I wasn't a Christian, I wasn't a man of faith. I didn't understand any of that then. But for 6 years, we worked together with handicapped children, minority children, children of diversity, all kinds of diversity. And then at the age of 34, my wife said to me one day, why do you hide your handicap? And I said, I don't hide my hand. What are you talking about? I'm not hiding anything. Why do you care anyway? Who do you think you are? You're nothing but a white woman. She went, Don, I am your wife. I could care less. It's all about the money, baby. And then she began realizing that my motives were very, very angry. And they were. I hurt her. I hurt our first 2 children. Children who have been hurt as children become child abusers. And I did hurt my first 2 children. I regret that with all my heart, but I was an alcoholic, running away from who I was, who I wanted to be. And through the love of my wife, through her intervention, when I was 34, she said, Don, I care about you, I value you. You have so much to offer the world, but you hurt, and you hurt your family. And she encouraged my second daughter, unknown to me, she encouraged my second daughter to come up to me one day. And my daughter said, Dad, I hate you for hurting us, and I hope you die. And those were the same words I had thought about when I tried to kill my father. I hate you, and I hope you die. And that just triggered change in my heart. And I looked at my wife and went, how do I change? This is all I know. She went, well, you might want to learn about God. And so I made a choice. And I know a lot of my people resent me because I don't follow the traditional form of Native religion. I was never introduced to it, never had anything to do with it. And I'm not saying I don't respect it, I promote it. I hope children will make a choice to honor the Creator in whatever way will help them survive positively. My choice was to accept her idea of a Christian God. And I did. And as I became a man of faith, I began changing dramatically. And here I am, 8 children later, a healed marriage, my 2 daughters that I abused loving me. And one of them mailed me a license plate from California yesterday saying Turtle Mountain, Chippewa. So through all of that, I began helping my children value life, value our Native heritage, value all people. We have a multicultural family. All 8 of my children are married. We have a Jewish member in our family. We have a black Mennonite son-in-law. We have a Native American son-in-law. We have a Polish son-in-law. And all the other, we have a hillbilly son-in-law. He told me to make sure I mentioned that. And then all the others are just plain old generic white people. And we have a multicultural family, 17 grandchildren, and they're all learning about their Native American heritage, their Jewish heritage. They're all learning about that through Don Bartlette. And I promote that in every way I can with our family. All of my children have traveled with me. They have all heard Macaroni at Midnight. They know where I come from. And they know why I want to be the person I am. And they value that. All of them have been involved in putting on powwow lectures with me, promoting native food, wearing the attire. My grandchildren cannot wait to be part of my lectures, you know. So we do that a lot with our grandchildren. And all of my sons-in-law and one daughter-in-law, they all value who we are. And they were all honored to marry into our family. And for me, I mean, that was just overwhelming to have 8 in-laws who respect me for who I am and what I am and what I want to be. And they all promote the Native American heritage, and now the Black American heritage, the Polish heritage, you know. So that's basically Macaroni at Midnight. Most importantly of all, I do want to share in closing that when I became a man of faith, I had to make a lot of choices. And the most important choice was, how do I handle the hurt and the hate within the child? The 9-year-old child always remains for the adult until the day we die. I am that 9-year-old child. There are moments, like when I was in the shower this morning, I remember the white woman teaching me how to take a shower. You don't forget. You don't forget the impact. And that's what I share with educators. Everything you do, every touch, every moment of anger, we remember that. And I remember when I became a man of faith, and that the white woman showed me love. Miss Hoffine at Minus, she showed me respect. And my wife showed me survival, how to survive more positively. And so I began thinking about all the people who had hurt me, my teachers, the policemen, classmates, my father. And my father was the last one I forgave before he died. And that took me years. It took me years. I met people this morning at the North Dakota Indian Education Summit. I met people here who are Native, and they told me privately that they haven't forgiven their father yet. It's a pain that takes years to heal from. In fact, one gentleman, Native, told me today that he has never shared part of my journey. He can't talk about it, and he's not ready to talk about it. And so I forgave my father. I happened to be on the radio talking to 91 million people one day, sharing Macaroni at Midnight, and the interviewer on the radio program said, Dr. Bartlette, would you mind talking about your dad and maybe even forgiving him? And he said, I have a feeling that's a part of your journey that you need to heal from. Why not try it? And because of my respect for the radio host, on worldwide radio, I said, the one thing I want to do before I die, I want to forgive my dad. I really do. I love him. I miss him. I wish I could be a part of his life. Unknown to me, my father was dying in the hospital in North Dakota where I had my first operation, talking about details of a journey. The doctor recognized my voice and knew who I was. And, you know, I'm fairly well known now in North Dakota. He went into my father's room and said, Mr. Bartlette, your son is on the radio talking about you, and he wants to forgive you. And evidently my dad said, well, I don't know what you're talking about. And the doctor said, well, from what I understand, you and he have had a hard time in life, but he is forgiving you on the radio, and he wants you to die a happy man. And the doctor told him about God, and my father became a man of faith. And right before he died, he told my aunt, I have a son. He was on the radio talking about me. I mean, he's a doctor. My son is a doctor. And when I found that out years later, I didn't know about that for 4 years. I had no idea he died knowing that I had forgiven him. I did not know that for 4 years. And when my aunt finally took the risk of telling me that he called me his son, that just changed my whole ideation about fatherhood. And I miss him. And I tell young people all over the world today, we need to honor our parents, no matter how hard the journey is. We need to honor family, so important in Native culture and non-Native culture. This is not only for non-Native people. I have counseled non-Native people years. Every time I share, many people come up to me and they say, how I wish. And so I'm happy. I feel well. 77 years old. I love being an elder because when we have a powwow, I get to eat before anybody else. My people honor me as an elder because they say I have wisdom and experience that's all a part of Native culture. It is a valuable part. We do honor our elders. And I'm proud to be an elder. I'm proud to be an enrolled member now of Turtle Mountain. I've been back there. I've spoken at their graduation ceremonies. I have a blanket from the Turtle Mountain people. Now I have a license plate. I'm proud and I'm happy to be who I am today.